You know what I think about constantly and enrages me constantly is the fact that in 29 states, count that, 29, more than 50%, if a female patient is under anesthesia for, let's say, a tonsil surgery, it is completely legal for medical students in the room to give her a pelvic exam without her consent in any capacity.
A male OBGYN at Johns Hopkins Hospital was secretly recording women's pelvic exams.
I just want to remind everyone that in 2020, during Trump's first presidency, they got caught giving hysterectomies to immigrant women in the US who were detained by ICE.
When I try to talk to people and talk to men about like how little the system protects women and children, and I get the, oftentimes I get this blank stare, like they're just like, like, what do you mean? Because because let the men tell it, it's like the system favors them and it's always protecting women. And I'm like, it's not. Like, it never, the system targets women and children. And it never occurs to them that the reason, like, the proof of this is staring them right in the face. It never occurs to them that the fact that women and children are the most vulnerable and they are the most preyed upon is the proof that the system doesn't protect them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the system actually protected them, then they wouldn't be the most preyed upon. You men wouldn't have to be protectors, right? Doesn't that make sense? But yeah, they still want to go out here and paint themselves out to be perpetual victims. Men, all that is. The reason why they deny that is the case is because men always like to paint themselves out to be victims. That way we don't have to actually address the victimhood of women and children. But I don't know how one can come across stuff like this and turn a blind eye or not connect the dots that women and children are indeed not protected.
In July 2021, I got a message from an encrypted email account. The writer, using a pseudonym, told me that she was a federal prosecutor pursuing the case of a serial predator and facing obstruction from the local police. She wrote, "There's a possibility that this person is being protected by local law enforcement. All I want is some accountability." The sender was Kat Dahl. She had been assigned by the Department of Justice to work with police in Johnson City, East Tennessee. And she'd been there for a little over a year when she encountered the case of a local businessman named Sean Williams. A woman had recently fallen from his 5th-story window and wound up in a coma. Police had searched his apartment and found a handwritten list of 22 names, one of them accompanied by the word baby, and all of them under the header raped. Dahl became fixated, obsessively researching Williams. But she started getting pushback from police. They seemed reluctant to share any materials with her. They failed to search devices that they had in their possession from the search of the apartment. When Dahl started seeking out victims, she started getting complaints about her job performance. Eventually, she was fired. Before she left the job, Dahl did secure a warrant for his arrest. But she asked again and again, and the cops seemed reluctant to arrest Sean Williams. When they finally did make an arrest attempt, he was tipped off and fled. 2 years later, a security guard on a college campus found him sleeping in his car. In his possession, he had 12 ounces of cocaine, 14 ounces of meth, $100,000 in cash, and a slew of hard drives. On the hard drives were thousands of videos and images that federal prosecutors would later say depicted sex crimes against some 67 people, many of them drugged and unconscious, some of them minors. How did Sean Williams get away with this for so long? I began interviewing more than 50 sources around this case and reviewing hundreds of pages of legal records. I also started talking to Sean Williams, who recently began serving a 95-year sentence in jail. He told me something surprising. He said that he had been enabled, in part because for years, he had been paying off police through an associate. He also accused police of stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from a safe in his apartment. Police have denied any wrongdoing, but recently agreed to a $28 million settlement with victims of sexual violence. The Department of Justice's Public Integrity Section, which is responsible for investigating police corruption allegations, has been significantly downsized during the new Trump administration. You can read more of my investigation in The New Yorker.
Story after story, you have it paints a picture of how men can violate women and children, and then how men in government protect those men. And then men in society run around and say that men are the protectors. That literally makes me irate. Like, I get so mad. I'm so tired of us telling that lie. It's so frustrating. If we don't acknowledge what we really are, which are predators, then we can never actually address the fact. We can't actually address the fact that we need to change things on a systemic level. Like, there are policies that are in place that enable these people to get away with this stuff, and there are people in charge, men in charge, that are enabling these men to skirt any type of responsibility. So we need to address it, but we can never get to it because men just want their turn of being terrible human beings and getting away with it. That's really ultimately what it is. There's a lot of men out there that are very similar to Sean Williams in so many ways, and they don't want to get caught up. They don't want to, they don't want to have to answer for their transgressions.
You know what I think about constantly and enrages me constantly is the fact that in 29 states, count that, 29, more than 50%, if a female patient is under anesthesia for, let's say, a tonsil surgery, it is completely legal for medical students in the room to give her a pelvic exam without her consent in any capacity. That should be illegal. That's a crime. That is assault. I'm sorry, that is so messed up, and I'm terrified to get surgery ever since I learned that fact. And I will never be receiving surgery ever since I learned that without someone in my family being in the room awake, watching what's going on, because that terrified me.
I don't think you can legally be in the room. I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but usually, yeah, I don't think you can be in the room, but yeah.
That made me lose all trust in the medical system. So that sounds like a crime, and that should be illegal. I don't know how the hell that isn't illegal and a crime. There's horror stories online of this happening to people and them asking their doctor, and the doctor is straight up lying to them. Terrifying. That terrifies me. You guys also have to be mad about this because I'm mad about it, so.
Yeah. Just something you have to worry about as a woman. Can't get a surgery, an elective surgery, a needed surgery. Got to worry about getting violated while you're asleep, on top of getting raped. This is more likely to happen, to be honest with you. This is more likely to happen than a woman getting raped. Both of them terrifying. Both of them not interested in it happening. And for my wife too. Like, I don't want my wife to get, to get a surgery now. You know what I mean? Like, I never did want her to get one, but I'm saying, like, I'm way more like, what the hell? That's another thing I got to worry about.
A male OBGYN at Johns Hopkins Hospital was secretly recording women's pelvic exams. Over 7,000 different women. And the hospital agreed to a settlement of $190 million with these 7,000 women, which that seems criminally underpaid. But I went down this rabbit hole finding this story because of the 4.5 million women in America that have received unconsented pelvic exams nowadays. And that number is light because half the doctors that do this do not record it because they're not charging your insurance for it. They're allowing medical students just to feel women up while they're already under anesthesia for a different surgery. And this is the woman's experience in America. Everything is different for them, guys. From you wanting to take away their bodily autonomy if you're MAGA, to if they're supposed to feel safe and comfortable with a doctor going to get a surgery, now they have to worry about, is this guy feeling me up while I'm under anesthesia, or worse? Or worse. This is so sad. I ladies, I'm sorry. We have failed y'all as a society. This literally made me want to cry.
Female doctors only. At this point, like female doctors only for women. Like, what are we doing? This is great. Like, I requested a female doctor, not because of this, because I'm worried about stuff like that. I requested a female doctor because female doctors are better than male doctors. Like the health outcomes when you have a woman doctor is just better than if you have a male doctor. So, you know, me being the man that I am, I was like, I want a woman doctor. Like, I'm going to give myself every chance to catch that cancer. I'm going to give myself every chance. I want to live, damn it. So yeah, I'm rocking with the women, but now, I mean, for women, Jesus, having a male doctor is a liability as a woman. The same way this is why I talk about all the time how being in proximity to men increases a woman's chances of harm. It doesn't decrease her chances. They don't need us for protection. They need us to stay the fuck away from them. They need us to not harm them. They don't need us for protection. They need us to not harm them, right? Also, you just see how the system doesn't do, like the system views women as not human. They just view them as like petri dishes. They view them as science experiments, like, you know, especially Black women, right? Henrietta Lacks, but women in general, they just view women as like not living things that they, you know, they could just do whatever they want to do with when they're unconscious. And I hate to reference a movie, but it's similar. Like if you guys go watch the movie, if you haven't seen it, but watch the movie Kill Bill 1, I believe it is Kill Bill 1, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, whatever. One of the Kill Bills. Uma Thurman's character, Beatrix Kiddo, she is in a coma, and while she's in the coma, the male nurse that was, you know, tasked with taking care of her at times, he would sleep with her, and he would let men come in and sleep with her while she was in a coma. Like, and I know that's a movie, but it's like, it's kind of like, I almost guarantee you, which there's proof of that too, but I'm saying I would almost guarantee you that shit is rampant, because this shit is rampant. The doctors are doing it. Right?
I'm guessing you haven't heard this news because it certainly isn't national, so I'm going to make it news, and hopefully we can share this. Because as someone who used to work for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, I know firsthand just how egregious and negligent and absolutely vile that institution is. Let's talk. This is Gaina Buffington. I hope I said her first name correctly. If I didn't, I sincerely apologize. In 1998, she was incarcerated at Central California's Women's Facility in Chowchilla. While there, she had a routine pap smear that came back abnormal. And if you know anything about women's reproductive health, that could signal that there is the presence of cancerous cells. That does not mean that you have cancer, but there's a presence of cancerous cells. So in the community, if a woman has an abnormal pap smear, there are procedures that you would undergo that help prevent those cancerous cells from actually causing cancer. And I am not an OBGYN, nor am I a gynecologist, nor am I a medical professional. I am a psychologist. So this is not my area of competency. So anybody who is competent in this area, please chime in. Because what they did to Miss Buffington when she was incarcerated was they did an endometrial ablation, which they said was meant to treat her abnormal pap smear, but did not disclose to her that the procedure destroys the uterine lining, which means it can cause infertility. So when Miss Buffington was released from prison at the age of 40 and she wanted to have a child and knew her window was getting narrower by the day, she was not successful within that first year. And she didn't know it was because of this endometrial ablation. She had no idea that this caused infertility. So when she found out, she tried 4 times for reparations because she had her reproductive freedom stolen from her, let's be honest. And 4 times her request for reparations was denied. The reason for denying it was that ablations don't qualify as sterilizations under the law because the procedure was performed to treat her underlying medical condition.
They didn't tell her, though. They didn't tell her that You know what I mean? Like they never warned, like that's lying by omission. They never told her. They never said, oh, if you get this, you're going to be infertile. Maybe she says, well, I'll take my chances because I don't have cancer right now. Maybe I take my chance. Maybe I get it after I have a child. Like, what the fuck?
And does not eliminate fertility. I'm sorry, but even I know as a psychologist, informed consent is necessary. That means you need to understand the risks and benefits to any treatment you undergo. And Miss Buffington was not advised that this treatment could cause infertility or sterilization. And finally, an Alameda County Superior Court judge ruled earlier this year that the Compensation Board wrongfully denied her reparations, stating that informed consent is a linchpin of the statute. Because, yeah, it's rule number one for any healthcare provider. And it's not surprising because having worked in CDCR, I have seen the absolute gross negligence that goes into medical care there. For example, if an incarcerated individual goes to see a dentist because they have, let's say, an infection in one of their teeth, they're not treating the infection by doing a root canal, giving you a crown, and preserving the tooth as best as they can, like you would if you were in the community. They yank it. They will take your tooth out. A perfectly good tooth otherwise. Why do they do that? Because it's more cost effective. Because if they yank it instead of treat it, then they don't have to pay for crowns and replacement crowns and anything else that might come about down the line. In the case of Miss Buffington, had she had a routine procedure, otherwise known as a colposcopy, and I probably said that wrong too, but it is a safe procedure that does not cause infertility, but it was not given to Miss Buffington.
Let me guess, it's more expensive.
And they didn't indicate she actually had cancer, just that she had the presence of cancerous cells. But the CDCR medical way of doing things is if we don't just give her a complete ablation, then she could potentially develop uterine cancer in the future that we'll have to treat. So let's go ahead and sterile her because she's under our care. How many more women underwent this? If you know anybody who was incarcerated in CDCR or anywhere that became infertile due to their procedures without informed consent, they have a right to reparations.
That's crazy. Not shocking, but definitely sick. Definitely disturbing. Wow. Just, dude, I'm trying to tell men how wild this shit is. When you listen to the things that women suffer, you don't, like, we don't have I have no clue. I don't fucking know. I don't be knowing nothing. I'm oblivious. And then I like stumble upon the worst information. Like if that shit was happening to me, like to a man, it would be like headline news. And it's like, oh yeah, no. And I'd say it to a woman, like, did you know? Like one of the worst feelings ever is having these conversations with a woman as a man, I'm saying, and you being like, oh man, this shit is crazy. And the woman's like, oh yeah, no, I knew about that when I was 12. Like, you're just like, what the fuck? How? And they're just like, yeah, like every woman knows that. You're like, how? Why aren't you guys burning it? Because of my male privilege. I don't understand why we're not burning it down. Because I'm a man. Because I know if it were happening to a man, what the reaction would be. But it's happening to women, and the women are just like, yeah, we're used to this type of shit. Like, you think that's bad, and then they ramble off like 13. I'm like, stop. Stop. Jesus. No, not me though. I keep listening because like I'm like I am completely pink pilled. Like I am all about, like what else are they hiding? What else are they hiding? What else are they doing to women and children? Like what else is going on? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not afraid. I want to see it. I want to see all the bad shit. I want to see the underbelly. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone that keeps asking, what about the women and children regarding the immigrants that have been detained by ICE? I just want to remind everyone that in 2020, during Trump's first presidency, they got caught giving hysterectomies to immigrant women in the US who were detained by ICE. This is full-on eugenics, and we have no reason to believe that this couldn't or wouldn't happen again. Let's not forget that we know from women who have also been in these facilities that they are completely cruel, lack adequate healthcare. They also lack enough drinking water, food. It's really an awful place to be. We know that some of these facilities are infested with rodents and bugs. We know that pretty much every single ICE detention center in the United States is thoroughly overcrowded. Anyone who is detained by ICE is not having a good time. I think we're spending a lot of time focusing on El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay because those are the most nightmare inducing, but the homegrown concentration camps are not. So definitely follow along to stay informed.
I mean, it don't stop, y'all. It don't stop. And I just want, like, I share this information because my hope is that one of these things, if not all of these things, will resonate with you as a man or even as a woman. If you know what I'm saying, if you are coming across this information, because some women don't know that this stuff is happening. But mainly as a man, I'm hoping you come across this information and you go, okay, there's something very troubling about this. There's something very disturbing about this. I cannot turn a blind eye to this. We need to address this immediately. That's the hope. That's what I'm hoping for. Right? We know this administration doesn't care about women, but no administration cares about women. They never have. But this administration in particular is going at women extra hard. They have attacked women in every single way. They've attacked women, financially, on an educational level, physically, in the workforce. Like there is a full-on assault of women right now, right? A full-on assault attack of women. So I'm hoping that maybe some of this stuff could possibly drum up a little bit of empathy and get the juices going and get the fire burning underneath men so that we can address this stuff. At the very least, maybe in your day-to-day life, you start to, be more aware of the things that you're doing to women and the things that the men around you are doing to women. Like, can we at least start there?